Josh Clemens, come on up for a second. We want to visit with you as well because, well, we're talking to experts in their field and lawmakers. There's also no shortage of people who communicate about politics through all sorts of ways. I mean, it used to be it was just, either you were a TV anchor or a radio reporter, you were an ink-stained wretch in a newspaper someplace. But now there are these things called influencers and content creators and podcasters. And Josh, you have just a little bit of experience in digital communications, so thanks for joining us for a couple of moments to talk about this.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm very honored to get to speak to a lot of people every day about what's going on in Wisconsin politics. Anybody here on TikTok? Anybody here recognize it? If not, we should connect.
We should have told them it's radio and not to raise their hands, but that's okay.
There's a crowd here, and they all raise their hands.
That's it. There.
And those at home should also be raising their hands. So I work in politics. I have the honor of working with a lot of amazing progressives throughout Wisconsin and nationally, but I also spend a lot of time talking directly to voters and potential voters on TikTok, and that is where a lot of my energy these days seems to go, because every year we have another existential race that we have to win or democracy dies, and that is something that I am unfortunately perennially focused on, as are all of you, I am sure. It's exhausting. It's not how this is supposed to work, but here we are, and we've got another one next year that we have to win, and another one the year after that, so it just keeps on going and going. But yeah, happy to talk about it.
Well, and the whole notion behind this is to not take democracy for granted, something I never thought we'd have to say in our lifetimes. But for a while now, that's something we ignore at our peril. And it's one thing for, let's say Dan writes a 1,000-word column for the recombobulation area.
So one on the short end.
Yes, yeah. Todd's got 2 hours every day on radio, as do I. But in TikTok, I mean, you've got to make that point quickly, or people are scrolling right to the next thing. So can you talk just a bit about the challenge and the importance of reaching people who may not be subscribing to any of those typical political sites? They're on TikTok. What can you say? How can you get that attention about the importance of this race in short order?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, anybody who's out there trying to do this on social, anywhere, it doesn't matter if it's TikTok or otherwise, remember that you're talking to a lot of people who don't know the facts, and that's okay. Like, there's no shame in not knowing what's going on. It's hard to keep up with this. We do it for a living, and it's still hard to keep up with it. My goal, every time I log on to TikTok, is to try to bring people along on the journey that I'm on. And as far as how I'm talking about this race specifically, democracy is counting on us. I say this all the time. If you see me on TikTok, you've seen it. This is not a race about Democrats versus Republicans. This is a race about democracy versus the end of democracy. There are 3 reasons why we have to win this race, why Susan Crawford has to win. If Susan Crawford doesn't win, we are going to have gerrymandered maps again. And I think a lot of people have not processed that after 15 years of fighting for fair maps, we literally might only have them for a single cycle before we go right back to gerrymandered maps, and that is a horrifying notion to a lot of people. The second reason is we need our courts to recognize that elections matter. North Carolina Supreme Court has made it abundantly clear that Republican courts do not recognize the will of the voters to pick their elected officials, and we cannot afford a court that it's even in question. And the third reason is that if we lose this race, we are telling the world that democracy is for sale, that every election is for sale to the highest bidder. And I have bad news for all of us. Elon will always be the highest bidder. And that is not a world that we want to live in, one where Elon Musk gets to pick his candidate in each and every cycle moving forward. So that's my 3 reasons. I hope I captivated you as long as I captivated TikTok audience. And that's yours. Take it, use it. Like, we're all in this together. Each and every one of us has to be sharing that message every single day with every person we know, because paid organizers are not going to win this thing. Susan Crawford is not going to win this thing. We are going to win this thing, and that is how we have to approach every election. It's not about the candidate at the top. It's not about the candidate's team. It's about us. We together have to save democracy, because it's us who will pay the price if we lose.
I'm sorry, I'd already scrolled to this meeting.
I lost it. Should I make a joke and bring it back?
There was a cat with a laser pointer, but anyway, no.